you're thinking about buying the Steam Frame, don't make a costly mistake because you need to consider all your options first. The Steam Frame is one of the most exciting VR headset announced in years, but there's a lot of hype and misinformation. So you need to compare all the facts to make sure you're making the right decision. I've been using VR headsets for close to a decade, and in this video, I'm walking you through every major headset worth considering in 2026 because the Steam Frame has one massive question mark that I don't think enough people are talking about. But let's get into it. Let's start with what we actually know about the Steam Frame because there's a lot of noise around this headset. The Steam Frame is Valve's first standalone VR headset, and the word standalone is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, but we'll get into that later. But it means the headset has a computer inside it. You don't need a PC and you don't need base stations for tracking, and you don't need a cable. You just strap it on and it works, similar to the Quest 3. But Valve has done a few things very differently. Inside the headset is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chipset, which is a step up from the chip in the Quest 3. And the displays are dual 2160 by 2160 LCD panels, and they're viewed through pancake lenses with 110-degree field of view and refresh rates of up to 120 Hz. And the whole headset weighs 440 grams with the strap and battery, which is lighter than basically every other standalone headset on the market. And the battery sits at the back of the head strap, which, trust me, this massively improves the comfort of a headset. But here's where it gets interesting. The Steam Frame runs Steam OS, the same operating system as the Steam Deck. And Valve is pitching this thing as a headset that runs your Steam library natively on the headset itself. No PC required, which means flat screen games and PC VR games. They built 3 compatibility layers to make that work, something called Proton for Windows software, an Android layer for Quest style apps, and an x86 to ARM translation layer. In theory, that means you just turn the headset on, you open Steam, and your library is just there. But there's a big question mark over which games are actually going to work, and we'll come back to that later, because it's the single biggest unknown about this entire headset. The Steam Frame also has inside-out tracking, but the pass-through is black and white, so it's not really a mixed reality headset like the Quest. The controllers look like the Quest 3 controllers as well, and then there's the streaming side. The Steam Frame ships with a dedicated 6 GHz wireless adapter that plugs directly into your PC, so you're not relying on your home router. And the headline streaming feature is something Valve calls foveated streaming. It uses the eye tracking in the headset to figure out exactly where you're looking, then sends a high quality stream to that part of the image and a lower quality stream to your peripheral vision. And you don't notice it because you can't see your peripheral vision anyway, and the headset uses that save bandwidth to make the part you're looking at look sharper. So if you don't have a top-end gaming PC, this could help a lot. And in theory, this should make the Steam Frame the best wireless PC VR experience on the market. So how does the Steam Frame compare to other popular VR headsets? Well, let's start at the bottom of the price ladder, the Meta Quest 3S. The Quest 3S is the cheapest serious VR headset you can buy in 2026. It uses the same Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 chipset as the full Quest 3, same controllers, and runs the same Horizon OS with the same game library. The compromises are the optics. It uses Fresnel lenses instead of pancakes, which is a lower resolution at 1830 by 1920 per eye, and a narrower field of view, and they're just kind of less quality. So how does the Quest 3S stack up against the Steam Frame? On paper, it doesn't really. The Steam Frame has roughly double the pixel count. It's got pancake lenses, a more advanced chipset, eye tracking, and the Steam OS. And the Steam Frame wins every spec comparison except one. The Quest 3S has the most mature standalone game library in VR. Full stop. You got Asgard's Wrath 2, Batman, Beat Saber. All of it just works the moment you turn it on, and it costs less than half of what the Steam Frame is rumored to cost. So if you're brand new to VR, don't have a gaming PC, and you want the cheapest way to find out if VR is for you, the Quest 3 is my recommendation. It's not the best headset on the list, but it's the lowest risk entry point in VR, and the Steam Frame doesn't change that, but you can still get an amazing experience out of a Quest 3S. Now we step up to the Quest 3, and after the April price hike, the 512GB model is $599 USD. So we're now kind of in the price range where the Steam Frame is probably going to be, hopefully. And the Quest 3 is right now the best all-rounder standalone VR headset on the market. It's my daily go-to. It's got 2064 by 2208 pixels per eye, LCD panels, and pancake lenses similar to the Steam Frame, but has full color mixed reality pass-through and the most mature ecosystem in VR. If you ask me today what the safest VR headset purchase is, the Quest 3 is my answer. So where does the Steam Frame come in? Well, the Steam Frame is a generational step up. It's got a newer chip, slightly higher resolution, eye tracking that unlocks foveated streaming, it's lighter in weight, and the storefront is Steam, not the Horizon store, which matters if you're an existing PC gamer with hundreds of games already in your library. So if you want a standalone headset for VR native games with a big curated library and great mixed reality, and you don't have a gaming PC, I'd consider the Quest 3. But if you do have a gaming PC and want wireless PC VR, the Quest 3 can do that too, but it depends a lot on your router, and a decent one can be pricey. The Quest can already do a lot what the Steam Frame can do, but the Steam Frame will probably just do it better. And if you care about Steam compatibility long term and you're okay with the standalone library being a question mark for the first 6 to 12 months, the Steam Frame could be the better long-term bet. And honestly, a lot of this will come down to price. If the Steam Frame lands at $599 like the Quest 3, this whole conversation changes, but if it lands at $799 or above, the Quest 3 stays competitive for a while yet. Now the big question mark. We need to talk about the standalone feature because this is where there's the most misinformation. And it's important when comparing the Steam Frame to other headsets because we don't know what the standalone game library is actually going to look like. For starters, we know the headset can run games natively, meaning developers can build specifically for the Steam Frame. But we don't know what games are coming out at launch, like at all. No one has announced their support yet. And like a lot of new VR headset launches, the library can be limited at launch. So banking on a ton of games at launch might be a bit of a gamble, especially if Meta has signed exclusive deals with some of these studios. Like Beat Saber, for example, they're probably not going to launch natively on the Steam Frame. The other side is Valve's pitch that the Steam Frame runs your existing Steam library natively, which means flat screen games and your PC VR games, running directly on the Snapdragon chipset through those 3 compatibility layers we talked about earlier. And on paper, that sounds amazing, but in practice, we have no idea which games will actually run, how well they'll run, or whether the experience on day one will be anywhere close to what Valve has been showing in demos. Will Half-Life Alyx actually run standalone? I've heard it will, but it doesn't look very good. Will the Steam VR version of Beat Saber run? Probably, but there could be lag. Will all the other PC VR games play well? It's a big question mark and a lot to bake on. My fear is that people will buy a Steam Frame expecting to play Half-Life Alyx completely standalone and then be disappointed. Because games like Alyx weren't designed for standalone hardware. They're designed for gaming PCs with full fidelity graphics. Valve has a track record with Proton on the Steam Deck that it works, mostly. But VR adds an entire extra dimension of complexity, so all these features are very exciting, but if you're looking for a standalone only headset, it's important to set your expectations accordingly. But now we got that out of the way, there's still some other headsets worth considering, like the PlayStation VR 2. It's a pretty decent headset and can be a great option for the right person. It's $549 USD to buy, but usually it's on sale, and pre-owned it can be a pretty good deal. And this one plugs directly into a PlayStation 5 or PlayStation Pro via a single USB-C cable. And the most significant thing about this headset is that it has OLED panels, proper OLED. It's got 2000 by 2040 pixels per eye, 110 degree field of view, it's got eye tracking, headset HDR, and the hardware is pretty decent. The OLED display in particular makes things like Gran Turismo 7 or Resident Evil Village look stunning. It makes it look very cinematic in a way that no LCD standalone headset can replicate. So how does it compare to the Steam Frame? Well, they are a little hard to compare because the Steam Frame is going to be lighter, higher resolution and raw pixel count. The PlayStation VR 2 gives you access to games that you can't play anywhere else, and they're really optimized for the PlayStation so you get such an amazing experience. And the Steam Frame doesn't really replace that because the Steam Frame doesn't play PlayStation VR 2 games. But there is an underrated option, PlayStation VR 2 on PC. Sony released an official PC adapter for the PlayStation VR 2 for around $60 USD, and it can plug the PlayStation VR 2 into a Windows PC and use it as a Steam VR headset. You get the OLED display, inside-out tracking, and you get access to the full Steam VR library. The catch is that the PC adapter strips out a lot of what makes the PlayStation VR 2 special. There's no HDR, no headset haptics, and no eye tracking in most most games. And the Sense controllers need third-party drivers that are a bit buggy. But if you own a gaming PC and are thinking about a cheap way to access PC VR games while also getting an OLED display, this could be an interesting option. The downside is the Fresnel lenses, which dampens the quality a bit, but OLED is still a stunning option. So I just wanted to throw it out there as a potential option, comparing it to the Steam Frame, because I think it's underrated. Now we're into enthusiast territory. The Bigscreen Beyond 2. The Beyond 2 is $1,019 USD for the base model, or it's $1,219 for the Beyond 2E, which includes eye tracking, and it weighs 107 grams, which is super heckin' light, and it's less than a quarter of the Quest 3, and it has dual 2560 by 2560 micro OLED panels, 116-degree field of view, and brand new pancake lenses that Bigscreen claim are some of the best on the market. The downside though, it's also exclusively a PC VR headset, and is tethered, and you need Steam VR base station tracking. So you need to have base stations set up around your room, and usually you need 2 of them, because there's no inside-out tracking, no native controllers, gotta bring your own, which usually means the Valve Index controllers. There's no mixed reality, no Bluetooth, just a fiber optic cable that runs to your PC. Now, the Beyond 2 is not a competitor to the Steam Frame in the way the Quest 3 is. It's an enthusiast headset for people who already know exactly what they want from a PC VR experience and are willing to prioritize visual fidelity, weight, and clarity above anything else. And just a note, wireless streaming will never quite match the image quality of a wired connection, just like the Beyond 2s. And the hardcore fans know this, but foveated streaming gets it closer than ever, well, so Valve claims. On display tech alone, the Beyond wins. Its micro OLED displays destroys the Steam Frame's LCD display, especially in terms of contrast and motion clarity, and the weight is half the Steam Frame's, and the field of view is slightly wider. But the Steam Frame wins on everything else, but the Bigscreen wins on display and size. The 2 headsets are aimed at completely different buyers. Like if you're into racing sims, or play for hours at a stretch, and you want the absolute cleanest possible image, the Beyond 2 is pretty unmatched. But if you want to do everything VR headset that handles PC VR and standalone and doesn't tether you to a cable, the Steam Frame is the obvious pick. But a lot of people got swayed over to the Beyond when they saw the Steam Frame had LCD panels, so OLED can be a big deal. But what should you actually buy? Let's make this simple. If you've never tried VR and just want to see what the fuss is about, the Quest 3S is a pretty decent option. Because if you turn out to not like VR, you've saved yourself hundreds of dollars. But if you want the best standalone VR headset you can buy today, the Quest 3 is a great option. It has a mature library, mixed reality support, and you can play PC VR games wirelessly. So at this point in time, that's my current recommendation to people. If you own a PlayStation 5, you could buy the PlayStation VR 2. It's got OLED displays, bespoke games, and even potential for PC support. But the library is limited, and you're still using Fresnel lenses. But if you're a hardcore sim racer, VR chat gamer, or PC VR purist, and you already own base stations or Valve controllers, the Bigscreen Beyond 2 is still the visual fidelity champion, and the Steam Frame won't dethrone that. But if you have a gaming PC and want a wireless PC VR experience with the option to go standalone, and you can wait, the Steam Frame is shaping up to be the headset to buy. With the big question mark is that we still don't know the standalone library situation. If Valve nails Proton for VR the way they nailed on the Steam Deck, then this thing is going to be incredible. Either way, it's still going to be a great PC VR headset. The question is whether it's also a great standalone headset. I keep mentioning this standalone library question because I don't think it's getting enough attention, and I think people think it's just going to run PC VR games well. I'm not sure it will, but until we see the launch library, the actual games, actual compatibility, and actual performance, we don't know how it will compare. But I'm personally very excited for this headset and eagerly optimistic. So if I sound negative about it, I'm just trying to be a realist. I'm very excited. I'll be covering the Steam Frame extensively as we get closer to launch, and if that's the sort of thing you find useful, make sure to subscribe. Until then, I cover VR and immersive tech weekly, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!